Okay, so we're diving into an analysis from a single source today, and it's a big one. They're claiming that a major surgical strike just hit one of Iran's most critical assets. So what do they allege happened, and what could it all mean for the wider conflict? Let's break down their analysis. To really get the stakes here, you have to start with this number, 90%. According to the source we're looking at, a mind-blowing 90% of all of Iran's oil exports flow through one single place, Kharg Island. I mean, you could basically call it the country's economic jugular. And yeah, according to this report, that's exactly where this alleged strike took place. The source is claiming that this single, super precise attack has fundamentally changed the military balance in the Persian Gulf. So let's get into their breakdown of the event and what they see as the strategic fallout. Here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start with the strike itself, the details. Then we'll zoom out a bit to the strategic message they say is being sent. From there, we'll look at how all this pressure connects to the regime's internal struggles. And finally, we'll wrap up with the source's take on Iran's long-term strategy. All right, first up, the strike on Kharg Island. So what exactly does the source claim went down? Well, according to their report, the key to the entire operation was one word: precision. And here, the source makes a really critical distinction. They allege that 90 separate military targets were hit. We're talking specifically about things that let Iran mine the Straits of Hormuz and project its power. But, and this is the important part, they claim the oil infrastructure itself was deliberately left untouched. The source argues the whole point was to send a message of capability by taking out a military threat, not by crippling Iran's economy in peacetime. And that leads us perfectly into our next section, because this strike, according to this analysis, wasn't just a military action in a vacuum. Nope, it was part of a much bigger strategic signal. The source argues that the impact of this strike is turned up to 11 by another key military move, the arrival of a U.S. Marine Expeditionary Unit, or MEU, in the Persian Gulf. They say that when you look at these two events together, they're meant to send a really powerful message. So, what exactly is an MEU? Well, the source gives a very direct, very potent definition. It's not just a handful of soldiers, it's a whole self-contained fighting force, with its own air, ground, and artillery assets. As they put it, it's capable of waging a small war, or, and this is a key detail, taking an island. So you combine the surgical strike with the MEU's arrival right offshore, and you get the direct message that the source has interpreted. The signal to the Iranian regime is, in their view, crystal clear. Your most critical economic asset is now defenseless. And oh, by the way, a force that's perfectly capable of seizing it is parked right next door. Now, this kind of external pressure is almost always designed to have internal effects. So let's shift our focus to how the source analyzes the regime's struggles at home and what conditions they see as necessary for any real change to happen. The source basically outlines three key factors. First, you need a good number of people from the security apparatus to defect. The very people ordered to suppress dissent. Second, the regime's ability to project military power outside its borders has to be crippled. And third, a viable civilian coalition needs to form to present a real alternative. This chart really visualizes the source's assessment of where things stand. They argue that, yeah, huge progress has been made in crippling Iran's external military power. But on that other front, fostering internal defections within the security forces, they say there's been very little progress there. And what makes this internal challenge even tougher is that, as the source points out, the regime is playing defense. It's actually calling its own supporters into the streets. And this does two things. One, it intimidates the opposition. And two, it effectively creates human shields, making it way harder to target regime checkpoints and assets. So you're facing all this pressure. What is the Iranian regime's grand strategy? Well, the source we're following here characterizes it as a long game, basically a war of political will. This quote from the source just perfectly sums up that strategy. The core belief isn't that they have to win militarily, not at all. They just have to outlast their adversary. The goal is to make the conflict so politically painful for the United States that its leaders and its people eventually just give up. And according to the source, this strategy is built on several pillars. First, just prolong the conflict to wear down American resolve. Second, create global economic pain by threatening shipping lanes, which ramps up international pressure. And finally, build a command structure that's designed to survive so-called decapitation strikes, attacks aimed at their top leadership, and just keep on fighting. It is all designed for survival and attrition. So the picture painted by this source is one of immense external pressure meeting this deeply entrenched strategy of just waiting it out. A surgical strike cripples military power, sure, but the regime is built to endure a long, painful political fight. And their analysis really leaves us with one central question. In this war of wills, who blinks first?